supplies kit.
Peter, how and when does MEMA interact with non-government relief agencies such as American Red Cross in disaster preparedness, response, and follow-up?
Well, I mentioned we bring in all of these various agencies when we activate. When we bring them in, we actually have them divided into ESFs, we call them, or emergency support functions. In other words, folks who do like things are sort of grouped together. So if we get a request, then we don't have to figure out what agency to send them to. The American Red Cross is a leader in our emergency support function that deals with mass shelters. So obviously we're always working with the Red Cross to developing sheltering programs around the state, whether it's local shelters within communities or regional shelters. We're developing a regional sheltering program. Part of the Cape Cod Emergency Traffic Plan is that we utilize the Massachusetts Military Reservation in Bourne as a shelter of last resort if a hurricane were to come and we have to close down the bridges so folks can no longer get off the Cape. American Red Cross is a key component to setting up that large-scale shelter. But it's an ongoing event. And then after an event, obviously, we almost get out of the way and let folks like Red Cross or Salvation Army, the other volunteer agencies, do their thing. They're key for the recovery portion as well.
You know, when we teach the general public, when we educate them with preparedness, we tell them to make a plan and then practice the plan. Does MEMA practice its plans?
Well, we make every effort. In addition to working with communities to help them exercise their plans or get involved with regional plans. We certainly get involved with exercises ourselves. Every year as we enter the hurricane season, we have a statewide hurricane exercise, which will be a full day of generally a sit-around tabletop exercise to go through various scenarios. In October of this year, Massachusetts is partaking in a federal multiple-day exercise to basically test our abilities to respond. We deal with 3 nuclear power plants here in Massachusetts, one within state in Pilgrim and Plymouth, but right across the border in Seabrook and right in New Hampshire, right across the border in Vernon, Vermont, at Vermont Yankee. And every 2 years we have to have a federally graded exercise as well. So we're always either coming into or out of large-scale exercises. We have a group, our training department is also our exercise department. So we practice what we preach, if you will.
Now, let's take a few moments now and let me briefly review for you viewers the basic disaster preparedness principles. What you're going to be prepared for is what can happen to you in a disaster. And really there are 2 things that could happen to you in a disaster. You can be stuck at home with no electricity, no water, no facilities, or you can be taken out of your home into a shelter, or both. You could be stuck at home for a while and then taken to a shelter. And the videos we watched today gave you some elements of preparedness. You should know by now you gotta have a plan. And once you've got it, you should practice it. And you should have actually supplies on hand for your stay in your home for at least 3 days. And that means food, water, lighting, please no candles, and general supplies. Us older folk have to be careful that we don't run out of medications. And we also need to have a kit to take with us if we're taken out of our homes and brought to a shelter. And that's very important, because in that kit should be things like a spare set of keys. Because if you leave your home, you want to be able to lock it. But when you come back, you want to be able to get in. And another thing that's very important to almost everybody, especially us older folk, is a list on a piece of paper of all of the medications you may take that have on them the strength and the name of the medication, the name, address, and telephone number of the doctor who prescribed them, and the name, address, and telephone number of the pharmacy who filled them. And you can put that on a piece of paper and keep it in your kit so you'll be ready to take it with you if you leave. And also a couple of days' supply of all of this stuff. Another thing that it's important to have in your kit is, for me, a comfort food. Because where you're going to a shelter, they give you basically a place to sleep, food and drink, and first aid if you need it. And I love chocolate, so I have a big bar of chocolate in my kit. And now if you have kids, you remember to bring something for the kids. And if you have pets, it's important to remember that except for service animals, pets are not generally allowed in a shelter. So you should plan ahead for your pet. Not only should you have food for your pet in your kit at home, but you should have plans of somewhere to leave your pet if you're left, if you have to leave your home. Another important thing is to have what they call an emergency communications network. Sounds complicated, huh? But it's not. You have to remember that in an emergency, two groups of people are going to want to know that you're okay. The people who love you and the people you owe money to. And you want to be able to tell the people that love you that you're okay. So you call an out-of-town contact. Maybe it's your cousin Helen in Ohio. You say to her, "Hey, Helen, if there's ever a disaster in Boston, don't call me. I'll call you, because it's easier to get a call out than to get a call in." And then you call everybody in your link, in your network, in the local area, and you say, in case there is a disaster, you want to find out how I am, do not call me, call cousin Helen. And you give them the number, you make sure that everybody in your family has the number, so that in a disaster, everyone can keep track of everyone else. It's all about being prepared. If you're prepared for your disaster and a disaster happens, you won't have to say, "Oh God, what do I do now?" You'll be backed up by FEMA, MEMA, and your local emergency management agencies. It's important that you know how to coordinate with them. Okay, now, just another little additional thing about your disaster supplies kit. I want to add some stuff to it. You're going to need food, obviously, and it cannot be perishable food. Consider nuts. Consider dried fruits. If you go into your supermarket, up and down the aisles, you'll see so many cans of foods. But don't forget the can opener, a manual can opener. And make sure that you can open a can with it. Some of those 99 special openers really are a challenge to anybody to open a can. And how long do you make it last? Well, every 6 months you should look at your food. And you can turn over the water in 6 months. Don't forget a gallon per person per day. And you can use up the food. Don't throw it away. Eat it. Then if you bought 9 cans of tuna fish to last you 3 days, you'll know that you did the wrong thing. And the next time you go to your supermarket, you can be a lot wiser in picking up your supplies. Well, I hope that you have gotten some information about your relief and your relief efforts on the part of the government agencies, especially MEMA. I'd like to thank Peter Judge. Thank you for being with us. I'm really